Hey YouTube, either I just made a really good decision or a really bad decision, and we're going to find out which one's the case. Someone came in my shop this morning, didn't have any other techs around, and I had a lot going on, and I decided to buy a washer dryer set without testing it beforehand. I also spent a little bit more money than I normally would on a set that I hadn't tested, but I thought this would kind of be a good study to see how smart or stupid I am and what's also involved in dealing with washer and dryer refurbishment and flipping. So I'm going to deal with this set from start to finish. I snuck a video in when the guy still had them on the truck to know, what they look like beforehand. And hopefully through this whole video, we're going to make a little bit of money one way or the other, or maybe I'll lose a little bit. We'll find out. So this is a GE washer dryer set. It is a slightly nicer top load set than their absolute basic models. Has a few extra buttons and knobs and dials on it. I don't know the maker model yet on it, but I will get to researching that. I saw a similar pair on AJ Madison for about $1,200 new. The person that sold them to me claims it's in good working order, which I know doesn't really mean much, but I paid $100 for the set outright, sight unseen, in the way of I have not tested it yet. So we're going to go through and test everything. On these dryers, the first thing I look for, other than the fact that he did include the manuals with it, is whether or not the bearing is shot on it. Every brand has their own quirk. GE's quirk is that they sometimes sound really bad when you spin the drum. This one actually sounds pretty good. There's a little bit of spinning action even after I let go, which means that it's not really bound up. So I am going to take it into my test laboratory, that's a good way to put it, and see if it actually turns on, if it heats, and what I need to do to it if I got screwed, or if I can make a little bit of money. In an odd twist of fate, right when I got ready to bring the dryer into my testing station, I actually found another GE dryer that has the exact problem I mentioned that I try to watch out for. It's a little bit older of a dryer, and hopefully you can see that I'm not bull crapping anyone, but this is an older front panel to a GE dryer. And if you look on the front of this, you can see that the hub is totally worn and more or less destroyed. It starts sounding like you are throwing cats into a washing machine or drying machine and seeing which one wins in the Thunderdome. It sounds really, really bad with metal on metal contact. Now, what you were looking for is there are glides here, or were glides here, as well as this plastic bracket and bracing here. Eventually, over time, these tend to wear out on GEs, which cause them to start squealing and will end up totally destroying the dryer from the inside out. So we always try to spin the dryer baskets before we buy them. I didn't do it in this case because the claim is that the dryer is only about 3 years old. So generally they're not destroyed by then, but we always try to look out for it. But I wanted this video to be something that was honest with stupidity and intelligence. And again, we're trying to learn from our mistakes. So far, so good. I'm going to go ahead and start working on bringing the dryer over, which we'll probably fast forward through some of the installation stuff, so sit back and enjoy. And now we are at the moment of YouTube magic. So here's the back of the machine running, getting really good airflow. I move my hand and stuff just blows away. It's really good. It's not getting the absolute hottest, but high efficiency newer dryers tend to be less hot than old ones. If you get like an old 1980s or 1990s Kenmore Whirlpool, those things get extremely hot coming out the back, enough to the point that on some of them, if you don't put the right thermal fuse on them or high limit cutoff, they can pop because they're mismatched being so hot inside the cabinet. But newer GEs, Whirlpools, not quite as hot. I don't have my thermal gun, but I can come back and verify this later. But so far, everything's good. We got a 3-prong cord on it over here, and it's just a basic one that we use for testing, and it goes up to a 3-prong dryer outlet. I know this stuff looks really basic and hodgepodge together, but it works, and we're not running anything super constantly to where we could have any sort of fire hazard in the way that we're always monitoring it. And here's that other GE that I referenced with the bad bearing, the front of it off. If you want to see that I'm not lying about having a random one lying around. In an interesting stroke of luck, I started to look at the date code on this as well as start taking it apart to clean the drum of it. And come to find out, I did get lied to about how old this unit is, but this may be the first time that I have ever had the inverse happen to where they lied in a good way. Down here is the serial and model number on this dryer, and there's a nice little QR code here that you can click on to reference all the information through GE's website. Come to find out, he thought it may be 3 to 5 years old, and it is only a 1.5 years old. It was made in 2017, which is a really good thing for me. I was able to look the model number up on AJ Madison, which I just used to see what roughly the price is. And it turns out the pair is about a $20 set for the washer and dryer. The timer ended up advancing fine on this unit. It ended up going to about 40 minutes, was really hot, and everything seems to check out on it. Underneath the lid of this, you can look, there's not a whole lot of lint, at least on the top of the drum. It looks really good. I'm going to take a vacuum cleaner and maybe take the bulkhead off, do a little bit of work on the lint. There's a little bit up here where the wire harnesses are, which is typical and tells me that I need to do a little bit of touch up on it. But so far, so good on this set, and I'm really excited because the price that I think I can get out of it is continuing to go up. So I have made maybe a good deal on this one, but I won't know yet till I get the washer tested. And that will be coming up shortly once I get this unit totally finished. So a little bit of time has elapsed since the last part of this video. I am running a store while I'm doing all this, and the reality is I have customers coming in and going out. I therefore have made this process quite a bit broken. It's not a straight continuation. It's the same day right now as when I got the set and took it off the truck, but it's about 3 or 4 hours later because of other tasks. So what I'm getting ready to do is bring the washing machine in and see how it's going to fare. The dryer fared really well with the lint and dirt in it, got vacuumed out in like 2 or 3 minutes. I'm probably like 20 minutes, maybe 25 minutes into this process tops. And a lot of that time was actually spent on YouTube trying to figure out how to get the console top off of the GE dryer. It's a little bit newer than what I am used to, so I had to learn something myself to get it taken apart. When it comes to this washer we're bringing in, what I usually find on sets is when they look good, one of the appliances works 100%, it's fine, and then the other appliance, whether it's the washer or the dryer, usually the washer ends up being a hunk of junk. So I'm going to bring it in here, the washing machine, get it hooked up, and then we're going to see what happens. So get ready to enjoy. In this business, there's a lot of downtime. The machine's starting to run well. I forgot to turn the valves on, and I also forgot to put some clothes in it. So while we cut, I threw some clothes in, turned the valves on. Everything seems to be running fine. It's running a little bit loud, which may concern a customer, but generally what ends up happening is that's just the sound of agitation. Some people don't like their washing machine making noise. I always tell people that it sounds like it's actually doing its job. This GE does have an agitator to it. It's a 4.1 cubic foot capacity washer, which for a washing machine that has an agitator, that is really, really, really good. A lot of customers ask, well, what's the capacity on it? And usually I don't know what to tell them because I'm not measuring it, or it's an older design to where it doesn't have a cubic foot capacity on it. Only in the past few years have manufacturers decided to put capacity labels on the machines. So at 4.1 cubic foot, it tends to be one of the larger or largest top load that I know of, which is a really good selling point. I continue to do some research on the models while the machine continues to agitate, and it looks like the set's worth about $1,000 new, anywhere from that up to maybe $1,300. So far, this is one of the better, maybe best flips I've had. And it randomly walked in the day after I finished my first YouTube video. What are the chances? I don't know. It's really strange. But if this keeps happening, I will continue to keep doing YouTube videos. This is awesome. But even though it's agitating right now, that's one of the major points you want to look on a machine to make sure it works. But the real concern is what happens in drain and spin. When you go from agitation to drain and spin, multiple things can fail on a unit like this. Even a new high efficiency unit, even one that's only a year and a half old. And what can happen is, one, your drain pump really has to start working at that point, getting water out of the drum while it spins. Two, it has to spin, and it has to do it without blasting the sides of the unit. We've worked on a lot of units, maybe not GE necessarily, but a lot of units that are top loaders that everything seems fine, and then all of a sudden the machine reminds me of something from Mr. Mom from the 1980s, to where the machine's just starting to walk across the floor. Not because it's not level, but because the suspension rods have gone out. We get a lot of newer HE top loads that have bad suspension rods. These machines tend to drain and spin much faster, much better than old machines do, but it comes at the cost of the fact that the balancing rods or suspension rods or struts tend to go a lot bad, a lot worse, a lot quicker. It's a trade-off, but for some people it tends to be worth it, others it doesn't. But in our line of work, in my line of work, it means more money because struts tend to be kind of cheap, $30 to $50 to fix a unit. And if that's all we're dealing with, it's not too bad of a deal. But then you have to be worried about whether or not the suspension rods have thrown something else out. If they've tore the balancing ring up, have they damaged any components on the inside of the structure? So when we get done with this on drain and spin, we can kind of make a determination if anything else is bad. When you open the lid up on this one, there's a lot of detergent in the balancing ring, or between the inner and outer drums, which we're going to definitely have to clean up, but we'll see what happens. I may actually pause this machine and go ahead and put it into drain and spin and just see what happens, because it has been running for 25 minutes at this point, which newer HE top loads tend to run a long time, but there's almost no water in the drum on this, so we've used very little water on the unit, which it's a good thing, I guess. What are we going to? Oh. Moment of truth on whether or not this machine is going to turn out okay. The lid lock or lid latch is activated. I don't know if you can hear it or not, but at least that sounds like it's worked. It's a safety feature on newer washing machines to make sure you can't just throw your hand in the machine and get it torn off. Probably a good safety feature to have. Although you see in used appliances, a lot of people love to bypass that switch because it's a common point of failure on pretty much any washing machine, doesn't matter the brand. So what ends up happening is they bypass it, something worse goes out in the machine, and then we got to go in, fix the lock, and then whatever else it has possibly been damaged in the process of it. The drain pump sounds like it works, so that's great. It didn't run very long, but there's not really a lot of water in the machine because it's high efficiency, so we're going to continue to wait and see. Oh my. Whoa. I don't know if you saw that or heard it, but that didn't sound good. That thing just like rocked the floor. Yeah, that's not good. Oh my gosh. Wow. So, got a little bit of a scare earlier and had to stop everything and troubleshoot the machine, which can't really do with my camera on. But come to find out, the giant comforter I put in to test it that was off camera was all balled up in one corner of the unit, which caused it to knock around really bad. I got concerned, opened the machine up, which is actually really easy for a washing machine. Never really opened up a GE like this. 2 back screws to take the console off, 2 screws to get the top plate off, push forward and pull up. So now it is in high spin again with a rebalanced load, and this is where it's getting at so far. It's not jumping around. I did try to re-level the leveling legs a little bit more. So now it is going back into spin. There's just all kinds of air, I guess, shooting out of the machine from the top of the lid, telling me that it's in a really high G spin. It's humming along. You may be able to hear it. A little bit of shaking. The suspension rods are maybe not as fresh as I was hoping. My first concern was that the suspension rods were bad, so I took them out, checked them for wear, and they were in really good shape, which they should be for a machine that's only 1.5 years old. But to say all that, make sure that your load is properly balanced or it's going to create problems, even on a fancy high efficiency top loader. So we are running it in high spin again with a comforter, a few rags. I may go through and run the machine through another agitation cycle and then another spin. My concern is that the agitator could have balled the comforter up. I did try to balance it out at the very beginning, but I want to make sure that it was a user error, me, and not something going on potentially with the agitator or something else in the system. But we've been in spin for maybe 3, 4, 5 minutes, and we are having no problems. So I'm going to go through, give it another spin, because I'm really excited. I want to post this online tonight before I leave my shop. Now, normally we're going through and doing this to a bunch of machines. I got a Kenmore over there that we've tested. I think it was yesterday that another tech did. So I don't know much about the machine. It was on in a complete cycle when I got here. But normally on a good day, we're going through this process maybe 4 times with washing machines and another 4 times with dryers. And then we're plugging refrigerators in and then doing testing on stoves as well. My hope on a daily basis is that we can clear between 8 and 10 machines and get them out to where we are testing them on the, well, not testing them, but cleaning them. Cleaning them is the word I'm looking for. To where we're cleaning them so we can clear maybe $1,000 to $1,200 a day in appliances in terms of making sure they're ready for sale. That's not always the case. I'd say half the time we meet that goal, my goal, a day. But it just depends on what we have and then the luck of the draw if they work or not. Our goal is to only get working or nearly working machines so we don't have a lot of time in them, but you never know what's going to happen. So I'm going to let this keep going, and then I will report back to you guys to see where we are in the process of flipping these appliances. So here is the washer dryer set fully done. Everything went okay with the second and third cycle of the washing machine to make sure that everything was going to work fine. It tested out good despite giving me a giant scare. Turns out if the comforter is about the only thing in the unit, it can tend to move around the floor quite a bit. Did not have to replace the suspension rods, cut my arm up kind of good, testing them, getting them out, and then checking the resistance on them. What's interesting about this unit is that the suspension rods, which in this type, they're in the four corners. GE has revised these suspension rods, and they are essentially the same ones Whirlpool uses on their vertical modular washers. That's a good thing in the fact that they are extremely cheap to replace if that was the issue, at about $10 per rod, maybe even less if you buy a 4-pack. But then it also brings up the issue of whether or not they're reliable, in the fact that I'm not the hugest fan of how Whirlpool does their suspension rods because they go bad all the time, but it's just part of the business. So here's the set as it is. I've taken a picture of it already. Now I'm going to go post everything on the Facebook Marketplace. Pricing wise, this is kind of a tough one for me. I want to be greedy and put a lot of money on it since it's at like a $1,000 to $1,200 set that's only a year and a half old. But then I also want to sell it as fast as possible. Usually when I have sets, I charge $300 and up, but this is, like I said, a much newer set. I'm probably going to put about $450 to $500 on it, expecting to get a counter offer of maybe $25 less on it. I'm hoping to clear no less than $400 on the set, but we shall see. Hey, so here is the wrap up on the video. There's a customer that just came in and purchased the GE washer dryer set, had $475 on it, negotiated with them a little bit, ended up taking $400 cash for it, a little bit less than what I was hoping for, but I also expected that there'd probably be some negotiation that would have wound up with $400 in my wallet. So I did end up doing pretty decent on this flip. Well, really, I did awesome on the flip because I only had $100 in the set. I didn't have to fix anything, and it was essentially cleaning the unit and then giving it a good testing just to make sure that there wasn't anything gone with it. So in the end, my profit on the unit is a total of, about $300, give or take. Got it on my wallet right here. This is definitely on the better end of what I do. It's very rare for me to get a set that is that nice with that little work needed other than just testing and doing a very light cleaning on. If I had those types of sets, I'd be a whole lot richer, but it's not the way it normally goes. We'll be doing a few more flips from start to finish. If you guys like this kind of content, to show a little bit more of the worst parts. The situation with the unbalancing was really concerning, but everything seemed to test out good. They ended up taking the set to Cincinnati, which is about 100 miles away from me. So if there's any warranty work that needs to be done, that's going to be kind of fun for them to bring it back to me. But it's a good set. I don't think I'm going to run into any problems. So on to the next thing. And if you guys like this, let me know. Otherwise, take care and have a great day.